Good evening, and thank you for joining me for another Boring Books for Bedtime. I hope tonight's selection provides all the boredom your busy brain needs to quiet down and let you get some sleep. Before we begin, I'd like to give a special shout out of thanks to some new members of our Patreon family: Stacy, John, and Adam. Thank you all so much for supporting this podcast. By becoming members of Patreon, you help us remain 100% listener supported and ad-free for everyone, and it's very much appreciated. And in something that's become a bit of an annual tradition at Boring Books for Bedtime, you and everyone else who supports us by becoming a subscriber on Patreon or by dropping a one-time tip on buymeacoffee.com will be entered into our special holiday giveaway, which has numerous prizes, including exclusive merchandise, some books I know you'll love, and a pack of audiobook credits from Libro.fm. To find out more about that and the perks available to subscribers every month, including exclusive episodes, full books, and collections found nowhere else, you'll find links to Patreon and buymeacoffee.com in the show description. I hope you'll take a moment to check them out. Now, let's read and relax. Find a comfortable spot. Adjust your volume. Take a nice deep breath in. Let it out slowly. And off we go. Tonight, let's conclude our reading of this marvelous little book, Frye's Practical Candy Maker, comprising practical receipts for the manufacture of fine handmade candies, especially adapted for fine retail trade, by G.V. Frye, Practical Candy Maker, Chicago, Illinois. Entered according to Act of Congress in the year 1884 by G.V. Frye in the office of the Librarian of Congress at Washington. Rights of translation reserved. Copyright secured. Let's pick up right where we left off as we work through Mr. Frye's receipts for candy making. Let's begin. Cream goods. Cream or fondant. Particular attention must be given to the manufacture of cream, as it is the basis of all cream goods. Take 20 pounds of sugar, 3 quarts of water, and 2 small teaspoons of cream of tartar, or 4 pounds of glucose. Put on the fire and stir until dissolved. Cook to a soft ball, then pour out on a marble slab, having previously been sprinkled with a little water. Let it remain until cold or nearly so. Then turn in the edges, and with a long-handled wooden spatula or cream scraper, work it back and forward until it granulates into a smooth white mass. Now knead it thoroughly with the hands and put it into a crock. Cover with a damp cloth, and it is ready for such goods as plain and fancy creams, chocolate cream drops, cream walnuts, figs, dates, etc., etc. Fondant for dipping. Use the same proportion of sugar, water, cream of tartar or glucose as in previous batch. Cook to the blow or 230 degrees strong. Pour out on a cold, damp slab. Let remain until perfectly cold, then cream as directed before. This cream is used for all dipped goods, icing goods, etc. How to flavor and color cream. If vanilla flavor is wished, add when the batch begins to boil 1 vanilla bean to each 7 pounds of sugar. Prepare the beans in the following manner. Split them in halves to the stem. Scrape out the centers. Place these on the slab so they may be incorporated in the syrup. While creaming the beans, add to the batch, or if flavoring with extract, pour it on the batch while on the slab. The color should be added when the batch reaches the boiling point. Syrup for crystallizing. Take any number pounds of sugar, 1 quart of water to each 6 pounds, and boil to 34 degrees by the saccharometer if a fine crystal is desired. If a coarse one, boil to 36 degrees. Set off and let remain undisturbed until nearly or quite cold. Then sprinkle a little water over it to dissolve the thin crystal coating that has formed over the top. It is now ready for use. Having placed the goods for crystallizing in pans, with a dipper, pour the syrup carefully over them until covered. Then place over each pan damp cloths, allowing them to rest on the syrup. This takes up the crust of sugar that forms on top of the syrup. Set the pans where they will be undisturbed for about 8 or 9 hours. Then place them in the crystal trough. Drain off the syrup and let remain until dry. Remove the cloths from them. Turn the pans upside down on a table and the goods will fall out. Casting in starch. This process consists in having a number of starched trays, which are made of wood about 2 1/2 or 3 feet in length, 18 or 20 inches in width, and 2 inches in depth. Fill these with fine dry starch powder and level the top. Now, with plaster molds, which are made fast to a strip of wood 1 or 2 inches wide, according to the size of the molds. Press into the starch and remove carefully. Take a confectioner's funnel and a round stick, which just fits the small hole at the bottom of the funnel, and long enough to give a handhold above the funnel. Fill part full with syrup, and holding it over the starch prints, raise the stick a little and allow enough syrup to escape to fill the print, and so on till all are filled. Then remove to the starch closet. When they have remained long enough, sieve off the starch. If there is still some starch adhering, dust it off with a fine brush. Then place the goods in pans for crystallizing. Maple fondant. It is made in the same manner as other cream, except use maple sugar instead of confectioner's A, and a little less cream of tartar or glucose. If wished to tone down the strong flavor of the maple, use 1/2 maple and 1/2 confectioner's A. Dipped bonbons. Take 3 or 4 pounds of cream made for dipping. Put it into a porcelain dipper enclosed in a jacket containing water. Place this on the fire, and when the water boils, set off and stir and work the cream with a small spatula until it is the consistency of milk cream. Now place the dipping pot on a table. Arrange the centers to be dipped on the left of the pot and a clean sheet of tin on the right. Drop a center in the cream. Then, with a wire ladle or an ordinary fork, dip the center and, removing it, drop it on the sheet of tin. In a little while they will be hard enough to handle. In this mixture dip English walnut halves, pineapple cut into squares, and whole cherries in this case. Color the cream pink and flavor nectar. Marshmallow drops, making the cream any color desired. Almond paste formed into small balls. Color the cream a green tint. Quince jelly, cream-colored orange tint. Citron cut into squares, cream white and vanilla flavor. Nougat cut into small strips. Chopped up black walnuts, chopped pistachio nuts, filberts, Brazil nuts, coconut, etc. Cordials dipped. Dip cordial drops in this same fondant as mentioned above. They are very nice and popular in the winter season, but do not stand well in summer. Dipped maple bonbons. Prepare 3 or 4 pounds of maple cream in the same manner as for white and for centers. Cook 2 pounds of maple sugar to a soft ball and whip into it the whites of 3 eggs. Beat to a staunch foam. When cold, roll into balls and dip. Also dip English walnut halves in this cream. Another nice center for maple is 1 fresh grated coconut and 1 1/2 pounds of pulverized sugar worked into a paste, rolled into balls and dip. Still another. Cook 4 pounds of maple sugar with 1 spoon cream of tartar to 265 degrees and stir into it 2 grated coconuts. Pour out on a damp slab, cream it, and form it into balls. Chocolate bonbons. Put into a dipping pot 1 ounce of chocolate to each pound of cream to be used. Place the pot on the fire, and when the chocolate is melted, add the cream and stir it until dissolved. Add about 1/4 of a pint of simple syrup to each pound of melted fondant. This is now ready for dipping. Use for centers English walnuts, hickory nuts, or Brazil nuts. Chop them very fine and work sufficient cream with them to form a paste. A chocolate center made in the following way is very nice. Cook to a soft ball 3 pounds of sugar, a 1/2 spoon cream of tartar, and 3 ounces of chocolate. Set off and stir into it 1/4 ounce ground cinnamon. Granulate a moment, then with a funnel run them into starch prints, any style desired. Set them in the closet. Next day, they may be removed from the starch and dipped. Conserve bonbons. Cook 4 pounds of sugar, a little more than 1 pint of water, and a small spoon of cream of tartar to a soft ball. Set off and add 2 or 3 tablespoons of pulverized sugar. Then, with a small wooden spatula, work the sugar on the sides of the basin till it becomes whitish. Then pour into the dipping pot, having the water in the jacket boiling. Color and flavor any shade or flavor wished, and dip any kind of jelly centers, dropping them on sheets of tin. When cold, with a small brush dipped in any color wanted, touch the tops of all the bonbons. For example, if the bonbons are pink, use red color. Dipped jelly gums. Dip fresh jelly gumdrops in melted fondant and pour them into a pan or tray containing chopped up walnuts or any nuts desired. Roll into balls and crystallize. Coconut marshmallow bonbons. Cut fresh marshmallow drops into 4 pieces each and dip them in melted fondant, pink color, rose or nectar flavor, and drop them into a pan containing grated coconut. Prepare the coconut in the following manner. Take white, desiccated coconut. Sieve it, rejecting all the fine siftings. Pour on the remainder a few drops of red color. Stir them thoroughly until all are a pink shade. Roll the dipped drops in this, and when cold, arrange them in pans for crystallizing. Fruit icings. Take of dipping cream any number of pounds desired, say 5. Put it into a basin inside of another one containing water. Place on the fire. Stir the cream until dissolved but not thin. Add a few drops of red color and flavor nectar or strawberry. Pour this into a starch tray lined with good, strong manila paper. Spread it in a thin layer over the bottom. Now put over the fire in the same way 8 pounds of cream and dissolve as before. Stir into this 3 or 4 pounds of cherries, pineapple, citron, or apricots cut up. Pour this on top of the first layer and spread of even thickness. Now again, melt 5 pounds of cream, color a bright green, and pour on top of the last. Set away until next day, then turn the tray upside down on a table, and the cream will drop out. Remove the paper and run a caramel marker over it 2 ways, and cut it into squares and crystallize. Almond icings. Use of same cream as before, about 5 pounds. Dissolve and pour it into a tray. Now, melt 1/2 pound of chocolate in the basin and add 8 pounds of cream. Dissolve and stir in 3 pounds of almond nuts. Pour on first layer and spread of even thickness. Then again, melt of white cream 5 pounds and spread it over the last. Finish as before. Hickory nut icings. Take 10 pounds of same cream as used before. Place it in a basin and dissolve as before. Stir in 3 pounds of choice hickory nuts and pour out in a tray, spreading of even thickness. When cold, mark with caramel marker and crystallize or cook 10 pounds of sugar, 3 pints of water, 1 teaspoon of cream of tartar to a strong ball. Let it stand a while to become cool. Then whip into it the whites of 4 eggs beat to a staunch foam. When it is pure white, stir in 3 pounds of hickory nuts and pour into a tray and spread of even thickness. Finish as before. A great many varieties of these goods can be made in this manner, combining different flavors and colors to suit taste. Fruit nougat. Dissolve as for fruit icings 10 pounds of cream. Whip into it the whites of 3 or 4 eggs. Then stir in 3 pounds of French fruits, such as pineapple, red and white, plums, cherries, etc. Pour into a deep pan and set away till next day. Then cut into large squares, same as nougat, and wrap in wax paper. Cream walnuts. Roll with the hands a piece of cream into a strip about 1 inch in diameter. Then with a knife, cut into pieces about 1 inch in length. Roll into a ball and place a walnut half on 2 sides opposite each other. Place them in pans, and when they have stood a few hours, they may be crystallized. Another way, form on a slab a cone of sifted pulverized sugar, any number of pounds desired. Hollow out the top and pour in a small quantity at a time of any pure fruit juice. Work it into a stiff cream and color whatever shade corresponds to the flavor used. Then roll out and serve in the same manner as before. These are very popular and handsome, made in such colors as white, red, yellow, orange, and green. Crystallize as before. Cream dates. Select choice whole dates. Press with the fingers the seed to one side, and with a pair of shears, cut the date in half lengthwise. The seed can now be removed without spoiling the appearance of the date. Fill them with cream and roll them in the hands lengthwise, making them long and slim. Place them in pans and crystallize. Made in this way, they are very handsome. They may be made in white, red, yellow, orange, and green. Cream cherries and raisins. Select only nice large fruit and open 1/2 of them and fill with smooth cream, any color or flavor desired, vanilla being the most popular. Cream bonbons. Having filled a number of starch trays with fine dry starch, print any design desired. Then put into a basin 4 or 5 pounds of fondant. Place this inside of another basin containing water and set on the fire. When dissolved, color and flavor as desired. Then remove from the basin containing water and set over a fire a moment, stirring all the time. Do not let it come to a boil, as that would change it into a conserve when cold. Now, with a funnel, run it into the prints and set it in the closet till next day. Then take them out on a sieve. Dust off any adhering starch with a fine brush or bellows. They are now ready for crystallizing. Jelly cream bonbons. Make impressions in the starch trays with molds having 2 separate designs, one smaller than the other. Now make a jelly from apples. Color and flavor it to suit taste. Then run it into the lowest impression in the starch. After filling all and they have become cold, dissolve a quantity of fondant to the consistency of cream, color and flavor. Now with the funnel, fill the impressions full over the jelly. Set in the closet, and in a few hours they may be taken out, placed in a sieve and dusted, then put into pan for crystallizing. These molds, having separate designs, may be filled with different colored cream, and they look very handsome. Conserve bonbons. Print a few starch trays with whatever designs wished. Cook 5 pounds of sugar, a small spoon of cream of tartar, and 1 quart of water to a soft ball. Set off and stir in 1 pound of soft dipping cream. Color and flavor. Then, with a small wooden spatula, rub the syrup on the sides of the basin until it assumes a whitish appearance. Pour a portion of it into a funnel, setting the remainder near the fire to keep warm. Run into the starch prints. In a little while, they may be removed, dusted, and put to crystal. Conserve icings. Cook a batch in the same way as for conserve bonbons. Whip into it the whites of 2 eggs, and when done, instead of running in starch, stir in 2 pounds of hickory nuts, or any nuts desired. Pour in a tray lined with paper. As soon as cold, cut into squares and crystallize. Several varieties of these icings can be made, and they are delicious. Log icings. Chop up a few pounds of blanched almonds. Sieve them, rejecting the siftings. Divide the remainder into 3 equal parts. Now, take 1 lot and putting it into a bowl, pour on a few drops of red color. Work them with a spatula until all are colored. Then spread them out on a sheet of paper to dry. Treat the second lot in the same way, coloring it yellow, then the third, coloring it green. Now take of desiccated coconut the same amount. Sieve and color red, yellow, and green. Color and flavor a quantity of fondant, red, yellow, orange, and chocolate. Take of the chocolate 1/2 pound. Form it into a roll. Now take of the yellow double the quantity. Form it into a sheet, just reaching around the chocolate. Then put a green sheet around this, and with the hands, roll it out into a strip 1 inch in diameter, and cut them into pieces about 12 inches in length. Lay these on sheets of tin or a tray to harden a little. When firm enough to keep their shape, pour a little simple syrup on a slab. Roll a strip in the syrup, then again in any of the colored nuts, and lay aside until the nuts adhere firmly to the cream. Then cut into pieces diagonally, about 1 inch in length. Proceed in the same way with all the cream, forming it into rolls, combining such colors as suit the taste, and rolling them in the different colored nuts and combinations of nuts. Roll some of the strips in melted chocolate, then again in the nuts. These goods are unequaled for dressing fancy boxes. Acorn bonbons. Color a number of pounds of almond paste a bright green, and roll out into strips. Cut into pieces of equal size. Then form into round drops, having one end shaped pointed like an acorn. When all the paste is formed in this way, prepare a chocolate fondant, same as for dipping chocolate bonbons. Sieve a quantity of A sugar, reserving only the large, bright crystals, put this into a pan. Now, take an acorn in the hand and dip the blunt end in the fondant. Then stand in the sugar, chocolate end down. So on drying, small crystals of sugar will be adhering to the cap. Continue in this manner till all are done. Then arrange them in pans and crystallize. Fig creams. Take green figs preserved. Cut them into quarters, leaving them connected at the stem. Now prepare a quantity of cream colored pink and flavored strawberry, nectar, or rose. Roll into a strip. Cut into pieces of equal size. Form them in cones. Put one of these inside of each fig, the base next to the stem. Press the quarters against the cream. Then with a fine brush dipped in red color, make 4 stripes on each one, starting at the base of the fig between each quarter and running to the point of the cream. Place in pans and crystallize. Jelly rolls. Cook a stiff apple jelly, color red, and flavor rose or any other flavor desired. Spread it out on a greased slab, and when cold, lay it on a sheet of cream of the same thickness. Roll up, cut into slices, and crystallize. Almond confits. Select a quantity of whole dates. Press the seed to one side and cut them in halves lengthwise. Remove the seed and put a Jordan almond inside. Close together again and dip in melted fondant, and when cold, cut them in halves and crystallize. Crab apples. Take of white cream 2 or 3 pounds, same amount of red, yellow, and chocolate. Form these into strips triangle in shape. Place them together in such a way as to form a round roll. Now, with the hands, roll out into a strip about 1 inch in diameter and cut into pieces of equal size. Roll again into balls. Then, with a sharp stick, make indentations on the 2 ends of each. Arrange in pans and crystallize. Pineapple creams. Cut a quantity of pineapple into small, narrow strips. Roll out with a rolling pin a sheet of cream quite thin, any color, and with a tin tube 1 inch in diameter, cut a number of cakes. Lay a strip of pineapple on each cake and fold 2 sides together over the strips. A very small ribbon may be tied around this and then put to crystal. A great many more fancy handmade designs might be mentioned, but a sufficient amount have been already named to give anyone an idea of how to get them up. And if, after becoming familiar with the modus operandi as given in this volume, they possess some originality, their imagination will readily assist them in producing new designs to the already large variety. Chocolate work. How to make chocolate cream drops. The first thing needed is a chocolate warmer. This consists in a large tin or sheet iron pan, inside of which is a smaller one arranged so water can circulate between them. Set this pan on the fire and bring the water to a boil. Set off and put into the warmer any quantity desired of sweet chocolate, having pounded it fine so as to melt readily. Stir thoroughly until dissolved into a thin paste. Add a little ground cinnamon. Now, having prepared the drops for dipping in the following manner, viz. Roll out a piece of cream into a strip. Then with a knife, cut it into pieces of equal size. Roll it again into balls. Lay them in trays until they have dried a little, so they will keep their shape. Then pour a cup of melted chocolate on the warm slab. This should be a small marble slab set in a frame, having an oil or gas stove or a few gas jets under it. Heat this slab blood warm. Throw into it a number of these cream balls. Work them around in the chocolate until coated. Then drop them from the hand with the forefinger and thumb on sheets of tin covered with wax paper. Set them in a cool place until the chocolate hardens. They are then ready for use. In summer, they should be put into an ice chest until hardened. Another way to prepare the cream for dipping is to dissolve a few pounds of cream in the same manner as for bonbons. Then with a funnel, run it into starch prints. In a little while, they may be removed from the starch, dusted, and dipped as before. In this same mixture may be dipped drops made from powdered sugar in the following way. Grate the outside rind of a few lemons, and having formed the sugar into a cone, hollow out the top. Pour into this the juice squeezed from the lemons together with the rind, and work all into a cream. Do the same with oranges and with any kind of fruit juice. Add a little citric acid dissolved in water to bring out the fruit flavor. Also, dip in this mixture roasted almonds, nougat cut into small squares, marshmallow drops, coconut paste, plain fondant squares, placing an English walnut half on the top. To make sweet chocolate from plain. Melt in the chocolate warmer any number pounds of cocoa paste. When dissolved, stir into it 1/2 pound of fine sugar dust to each pound of cocoa paste. Pralines. Cook 4 pounds of sugar, small spoon of cream of tartar, 1 quart rich cream to a very soft ball. Set off and work the sugar on the sides of the basin with a small wooden spatula until it turns cloudy. Work this cloud into the body of the sugar, and so on until it has a whitish appearance throughout. Then, with a funnel, run it into starch prints. In a few hours they may be taken out, dusted, and dipped in melted chocolate in the same manner as bonbons, with a wire ladle, dropping them on sheets of tin covered with wax paper. Make them in vanilla, strawberry, nectar, lemon, orange, and coffee. To make coffee, take 1/2 pound best ground coffee to 1 quart of water. Set on the fire and bring to a boil. Set off and let simmer a few moments. Then strain and use this liquid to cook the sugar with instead of cream, and finish as before. Any kind of jelly may be dipped in chocolate and are very nice. To thin chocolate when too thick for dipping, add a little cocoa butter, rapeseed oil, or fresh melted suet. To thicken when too thin, add fine sugar dust. Chocolate for dipping can be flavored with vanilla sugar, ground cinnamon, cloves, allspice, or mace. Varnish for chocolate work. Place in a glass jar a quantity of gum shellac. Pour over it enough alcohol to cover. Let remain till next day. When ready to use, pour out a quantity in a vessel. Add alcohol until the consistency of varnish, then apply with a brush. Apple jelly. Take any quantity of sweet apples, cut them into slices, and put them into a basin with enough water to cover. Set on the fire and cook until quite soft. Remove and rub through a fine sieve. Now, if wishing to run this in starch for dipping, add to 1 quart of this pulp 1 ounce of dissolved gelatin. Then cook 5 pounds of sugar to a good ball and stir in this pulp. Now, with a funnel, run it into the starch prints. Next day, after removing them from the starch and dusting, they are ready to dip. But if a stiff jelly is wanted for jelly rolls, etc., add to each pint of this pulp 1 pound of pulverized sugar. Set on the fire and boil, stirring all the time, until it begins to adhere to the spatula. Then remove and pour out into pans or trays, spreading it of any thickness wished. This is the basis of almost all jellies, such as strawberry, raspberry, pineapple, etc. Simply color and flavor to suit taste. Apricot jelly. Cook 10 pounds of sugar to a hard ball, then add to it 5 pounds of apricot pulp, having strained it through a fine sieve. Pour a portion into a funnel and set the rest near the fire to keep warm. Run it into starch prints and let it remain until next day. They may then be removed, dusted free of any adhering starch, and dipped in melted fondant. Preserving fruits. Select the finest fruit, but not too ripe, and pears such as peaches, quinces, and pears. Then, with an ordinary fork, prick them to the seed in several places, so that the air in the fruit may escape, and also so the sugar may enter the fruit more easily. As they are pricked, throw them into cold water. This prevents them from becoming black in the places pricked. Now, put them into a basin of hot water, letting them simmer until parboiled. Then, with a skimming ladle, dip them from the hot water and drop them into a basin of cold water, allowing them to remain a few moments. Remove from the water and put on a hair sieve to drain. When drained, put them in a wide-mouthed crock and bring to a boil a quantity of simple syrup. Pour this over the fruit. Then place a plate over the top to hold the fruit under the syrup. Set away till next day. Then empty this crock of fruit and put the syrup again into the basin and bring just to the boil. Return again to the crock and cover with the plate. Do this each following day for 6 days. By this time, the fruit will take up no more sugar. Put them into a cool place. Glazed fruits. Cook a few pounds of sugar to a blow. Set off and add such preserved fruits as are wanted. Then, with a small wooden spatula, work the sugar against the sides of the basin until cloudy. Now, dip out the fruits with a skimming ladle. placing them on a wire screen to dry, which will require an hour or so. They are then ready for the counter. Brandied cherries. Take an open-mouthed jar. Fill it part full of simple syrup, adding to it alcohol until of such strength as desired, and put into this a quantity of preserved cherries. When they have received sufficient flavor to suit taste, they may be removed and dipped in melted fondant. Syrups for the soda water fountain. As nearly 2/3 of the confectioners handle soda water, a few practical receipts for making the syrups most used will, I think, be acceptable to many. In preparing syrups for the fountain, use only the best confectioner's A sugar, as this renders the syrups transparent, does not decompose so readily, and saves the time and trouble of clarification, which is necessary if a poor quality of sugar is used. Syrups are best preserved by putting them in small earthen jugs, well corked, and in a cool place, ranging in temperature from 40 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit. To prevent syrups from granulating, add a small teaspoon of cream of tartar to each 12.5 pounds of sugar. Syrups that have fermented may be restored again by bringing them to the boiling point. Always use a copper basin in preparing all fruit syrups. Simple syrup. To each gallon of water add 1/4 ounce gelatin. Stir until dissolved, then add 12.5 pounds of confectioner's A sugar. Set off and remove the scum and place in an earthen jug for use as needed. A variety of syrups may be made from this syrup by adding flavoring and color, but they are artificial at best and do not compare with those made from fruit juices. Vanilla syrup. Split 3 vanilla beans and scrape out the centers. Add the beans together with the centers to 1 gallon of water and 1/4 ounce gelatin. Allow to boil a few moments. Then add 12.5 pounds best sugar. Stir until all is dissolved. Remove and take off the scum and strain into a jug. A very good vanilla syrup may be made by adding to simple syrup about 5 ounces of vanilla extract to each gallon. Chocolate syrup. Place on the fire 1 gallon of water. When it boils, add 12 ounces of chocolate pounded fine. Stir until dissolved, then remove and let stand until nearly cold, when a scum of grease will form on the top. Remove this and set again on the fire, and add 12.5 pounds best sugar. Stir until dissolved. Set off and strain into a jug. Many do not skim off the grease, thinking a better chocolate flavor is obtained by placing all in an open-mouthed crock or jar and stirring this scum into the body of the syrup each time before using, but I prefer the former. Coffee syrup. To 1 pound of pure roasted and ground Java coffee, add 1 gallon of water. Place on the fire, and when it boils, remove and cover, allowing it to remain so until nearly cold. Then strain, and having placed the decoction again on the fire, add 12.5 pounds sugar. Stir until all has dissolved and reach the temperature of boiling. Set off and strain into a jug. Lemon syrup. To 1 gallon simple syrup, add 1/2 ounce of dissolved citric acid. Dissolve the acid by adding 1 pound of water to 1 pound of acid, and a sufficient amount of fresh lemon oil to suit taste. Another formula. Take the grated yellow rinds of any quantity of fresh lemons. Place them in a closed vessel in the proportion of 1 pint of boiling water to each 6 lemons. Let remain a few hours, then strain. Now, press the juice from all the lemons grated and add this to the juice from the gratings. And to each pint of this, add 1 pint of water and 3 1/2 pounds of sugar. Place on the fire and stir until dissolved. Do not let it boil. Set off and strain into a jug. Orange syrup. Proceed in the same manner as for lemon syrup, using the grated yellow rinds of fresh oranges. Or flavor simple syrup with extract of orange, adding 1/2 ounce dissolved citric acid to each gallon, and color with saffron and a few drops of carmine. Strawberry syrup. To 3 quarts water, having dissolved in it 1/4 ounce gelatin, add 1 quart pure strawberry juice. Place on the fire and add a small quantity of carmine to color. Now add 12 1/2 pounds sugar. Stir until dissolved. Remove and take off the scum. Then add 1/2 ounce dissolved citric acid. Strain into a jug and when cold, cork well. Raspberry, blackberry, pineapple, and cherry are all made in the same manner. Peach and apricot. Take a quantity of ripe peaches or apricots. Remove the stones. Place them on the fire and adding to them water in the proportion of 1 quart to 4 quarts of peaches. Stir all the time until reduced to a pulp. Pour into a crock and when cold, strain through a fine sieve. Then, having dissolved 1/4 ounce of gelatin in 3 quarts of water, add 1 quart of the above juice and 12 1/2 pounds of sugar, and finish as strawberry, etc. Nectar syrup. Flavor simple syrup to suit taste with extract of nectar and color pink, with a few drops of carmine or cochineal. Another formula. Thoroughly mix together 3 pints of vanilla syrup with 1 pint of pineapple and 1 of lemon. This forms a very nice nectar. Catawba syrup. Add to simple syrup, colored a delicate pink with carmine, a sufficient quantity of extract of catawba to suit taste. Another formula. To 1 quart simple syrup, add 1 quart of catawba wine. This forms a delicious syrup. Orgeat or almond syrup. To 1 1/2 pounds of fresh blanched sweet almonds, add 1 or 2 ounces of bitter ones. Pound these to a smooth paste in a mortar. Then add 1 pint of water and mix. Place this mixture in a towel and twist from it all the milk possible. To this milk, add 3 pounds pulverized sugar. Dissolve cold and add a small quantity of orange flower water. Strain into a closed jar and shake often to keep the milk from separating from the sugar. Ginger syrup. Color 1 gallon simple syrup with a little burnt sugar. and add to it 1/2 ounce tartaric acid and 2 or 3 ounces essence of ginger to suit taste. Cream syrup. This is prepared simply by adding fresh cream to well-flavored syrups. Sherbet syrup. Take an equal proportion of orange, vanilla, and pineapple syrups mixed. Sarsaparilla syrup. Flavor simple syrup to suit taste with extract of sarsaparilla and color with burnt sugar. Cayenne syrup. Color pink 1 gallon simple syrup and add 2 ounces of tincture capsicum and mix well together. Cinnamon syrup. Flavor simple syrup to suit taste with extract of cinnamon. Maple syrup. Place on the fire 1 quart of water. Add 1/4 ounce gelatin. When dissolved, add 4 pounds pure maple sugar. Dissolve and strain in a jug. And with that, we have reached the very end of Frye's Practical Candy Maker, which was certainly a very sweet look into the past of confectionery. Some of these candies I certainly recognize, although many of them I haven't seen for quite a few years. Others are a complete mystery. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. And since we have reached the end of this work, I'm happy to tell our dear Patreon supporters that they can expect all 3 episodes put together in a single recording very shortly. Just a little sweet thank you for your support. If you'd like to read this work for yourself and maybe have a hand at some of these recipes, assuming you've got 10 or 20 pounds of sugar and a marble slab laying around, as always, you'll find a link to a free ebook from Project Gutenberg in the show description. If you'd like to connect, suggest a boring book you'd like to hear read, or request more from one we've already started, you can drop me an email via our website, www.boringbookspod.com. It's always a pleasure to hear from you. Thank you so much for joining me for this evening's reading. Until our next boring book, good night.